Hi, and welcome back for day 65 of 365 days of art. Sorry for the short break there. Without notice, had a lot of things piling up on my plate that I just had to go and take care of. I'm excited to get back to it. You may have seen some pencil sketchings that I've been doing recently. I'm trying to get better, taking some online courses. I may do an in-depth review of them later, let you guys know how they're going. So far, I really like what I'm doing. What we're actually working on today are a couple of different acrylic pours. I really wanted to take the time to actually prep the backgrounds on one day, and then we'll get to play with them a little bit more. I didn't think I was gonna get back to doing acrylic pours, but I've had so much fun with them. I see why people do them. I just wanna take them a step further. So for me, they're mostly backgrounds, which is why we'll prep a couple. They need plenty of time to dry, and then in the following days we can paint stuff on top of them like I've done in the past. A little bit of a change up coming up. I'm thinking about trying oils. I've only tried them maybe I think once or twice before, and I think I did like them. I just didn't really take the time to explore them because they're harder to clean up. There's a lot more involved than there is involved with acrylics. But after watching some YouTube videos of people trying both, a lot of people like the way that oils really work on the canvas. So what I learned is that you can actually paint oils on top of acrylic. You can't do the reverse. So you can't do an oil background and then try to put acrylics over top of it. I think it causes a lot of flaking and cracking from the way that I understand it. But you can do the reverse. You can do acrylics and then put oils over top of them. And that's because the oils dry a lot slower than acrylic. So if you try to put an oil under acrylic, they just don't mesh well, I guess. But letting your acrylic completely dry and putting an oil over top of it seems to work out. At least I'm hoping. That's what we're gonna try. Tomorrow we'll either paint on the acrylic backgrounds, or I might just try a very basic oil painting to remind myself how all of that works. Before we get started today, I just wanted to share a couple of things that I've learned so far in my short time doing acrylic pours that I think are really handy. So, the way that I do my setup, and this is by no means crazy professional or extensive, this is just what's been working for me so far, is I have a rack. This was just a wire baking rack that I put down and let the paints run over. I've seen people put push pins in the back of their paintings. That works really well. It's a lot less mess on the back, but then you have to get all of them even and make sure that, your canvas isn't wonky. I just haven't done it yet. I might end up doing it. What I put underneath the rack are these flexible pieces of plastic, and the reason I started doing this instead of the pans is that I still wanted to use my runoff, and if I'm not painting it into something else, I want to take off the skin and maybe put it into some resin jewelry. That's something else that I've never tried before, but it might be coming up, one obsession at a time. Next tip that I've learned is to get some condiment bottles, either from a local store or Amazon has them for super cheap. I like the ones that have the cap on here. I saw some of the screw cap, but I just feel like the paint's gonna get up in there, and the more complicated it gets, the harder it is to clean out. So these are just basic condiment bottles, red cap. I did get the one with the numbers on it. However, I did discover that I personally don't like mixing my either paint and water or paint and Floetrol actually in these bottles, because the way that I test for my right paint consistency is I take my stir stick and kind of whip it in there and bring it up and let it go down, and it should run off of there. It should still be a little bit thick, but it should run off into the cup rather than dripping into the cup. That's just how I've been comfortable mixing my paint. So when you put it in here, I did a pour and realized that it was either way too thick, way too runny. So while I do like to keep my paint in these and use them for the acrylic pours, I actually mix my paint mixture up first in a cup until I know that I'm happy with the paint consistency, and then I'll transfer it to these to actually use. Another tip that I want to implement, I haven't quite yet, but I plan to, is to buy a really fine mesh. I believe they come in wire and cloth. You just want to make sure it's fine enough that what that's doing is catching any paint goop, or it can also catch if you put little metal balls or beads down in here, so that when you shake it, it's really going to get in there and mix up all your paint so that you don't have any paint globs in your acrylic pour. You want it all to be smooth. Then the mesh will make sure that those don't clog up your paint tip. So I haven't done that yet. I do plan to. I think it's a really good idea for the bottles. The last tip I have for you today is that if you don't have one, you do want to get a blowtorch. This is really handy. You've probably seen them used in acrylic pour videos, and I at first thought that it was just to make more cells appear. That's mostly what I've seen, is when people take the torches to their paintings and you see all those little extra cells bubble up. That is a cool use of the torch, and you don't want to over torch your painting, but you may have also seen them use it when you just have that first layer of paint down on the acrylic pour and you're like, why are they torching a blank canvas? They're doing it to get all the air bubbles out of the paint first, which you want to do. Acrylic has a tendency to have air bubbles in it because there is actually soap in the paint itself. Don't know if you knew that, but that's something that I learned. And what this does is it gets rid of those bubbles so that you don't have random air pockets, and so that your acrylic pour can dry as level and smooth as possible. So you want this handy little tool. All of that being said, let's paint.